Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm so happy you stopped by, and we have an exciting video today. A lot of times these videos are your ideas, but this one was something that occurred to me when I ponder things. A lot of videos come when I'm sitting around pondering things. And I started to ponder about how Catholics determine that someone is going to be a saint. I mean, what is the process that someone goes through to become a saint? And so I started to research that. And it is pretty surprising. I believe right now there's over 10,000 saints. Like there's saints for everything. And so some of the steps here, we're going to cover this, is step number one. A local bishop investigates the candidate's life and writings for evidence of heroic virtue. The information uncovered by the bishop is sent to the Vatican. After that, a panel of theologians and cardinals of the Congregation for Cause of Saints evaluate the candidate's life. If the panel approves, the Pope proclaims that the candidate is venerable, which means the person is a role model of the Catholic virtues. The next step towards sainthood is beatification, which allows a person to be honored by a particular group or religion. In order to beautify a candidate, it must be known that the person is responsible for a posthumous, meaning they're passed away, miracle. Those who have died for their religious cause can be beatified without evidence of a miracle. So if they died for religion, they don't have to go through that beatification process. Mother Teresa was beatified. However, she was never canonized into a saint. In order for a candidate to be considered a saint, there must be proof for a second miracle. Now, I forgot to mention the very first process to a saint is that they have to be dead 5 years. And that's so that their emotional memories or their emotional state can be stabilized. So they came up with the 5-year plan. So they have to be dead for 5 years, and then they can, go through the process. So then, in order to be a saint, there has to be a second miracle after they're dead. So there has to be 2 miracles after they're dead. So 100% of saints are made saints after they're dead and after they've been dead a few years. So here's where my pondering came. You're like, Melanie, get to the point. So I was pondering, do these people even know they're saints? Do they even know the Catholic Church has made them a saint? Is there somebody, wandering around dead, and then all of a sudden somebody tells them, hey, you've been made a saint, and they're like, what? For example, in 2020, they did name a young boy who passed away the saint of internet users and computers, to be with modern times. But I decided that I wanted to try to communicate with one of these saints through the tarot cards, right? Whether you think that's evil or not, I don't know. If you think it's evil, turn this off, go do something else, get on a different channel. But this is what I do, is I explore things with the tarot cards. So I want you to meet, in the picture here, Margaret Mary, all right? Margaret Mary Alacoque, I think her name is. Evidently, they have a feast day, so that hers is October 16th. She's a patron of those suffering from polio and heart loss, or devotees of the Sacred Heart and loss of parents. Sorry about that. Polio, devotees of the Sacred Heart and loss of parents. She was born 7/22 of 1647. She died October 17th of 1690. She was beatified September 18th, 1864 by Pope Pius the Ninth, and canonized May 13th, 1920 by the Vatican City by Pope Benedict the 15th. So, Saint Mary Margaret Alacoque was a French Roman Catholic visitation nun and a mystic, and is greatly recognized for her devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. She was born in 1647 in France as the only daughter of Claude and Philiberte Lamaine Alacoque. Margaret has always shown an intense love for the Blessed Sacrament and preferred silence over the typical childhood play. she began practicing several corporal mortification. Now, I want to explain to you, because when I first read that, I thought, what is that? And because it sounds strange. Well, mortification is the unnatural practice of causing pain to oneself through bodily injury. In other words, you're harming yourself, okay? And this is done for self-exploration or spiritual growth. The Roman Catholic Church often held mortification of the flesh, in other words, put that flesh to death, as a worthy spiritual discipline. Like cut off your arm, because that's a healthy discipline. Very strange. The purpose of it is to train the soul to holy living. So figure that out. So this woman harmed herself. She harmed her own body after her first communion at 9 years old. She continued this until rheumatic fever confined her to her bed after 4 years. For 4 years, she was confined to her bed. And then she made a vow to the Blessed Mary to consecrate her to religious life. Margaret instantly returned to perfect health. In recognition of this favor, Margaret added the name Mary to her baptismal name. Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque experienced visions of Jesus Christ for most of her life, but thought they were normal part of life and continued the practice, right? After her death of her father, Margaret and her family were forced into poverty when a relative refused to hand over the family's assets. Margaret's only comfort in life was her frequent visits to pray for the Blessed Sacrament at a local church. At 17 years old, Margaret's family was able to regain control of their assets. Margaret's mother started encouraging her to become more social in hopes she would find a suitable husband. One night, after attending a ball in an evening dress, Margaret had a vision of Christ, scourged and bloody. He accused Margaret of forgetting about him. He showed her that his heart was full of love for her because of the promise she made to his blessed mother as a child. After this vision, Margaret was determined to fulfill the vow she made years ago. She entered the Visitation Convent Père-le-Monial in May of 1671 to become a nun. Saint Margaret Mary was admitted to wearing the religious habit in August of 1671, but not officially admitted to the profession until November 1672. Although she was described as humble, simple, kind, and patient, Margaret had to prove the authenticity of her vocation. During her time in the monastery, Margaret received several private revelations from the Sacred Heart of Jesus. These visions showed her the form of devotion, the chief features being the reception of Holy Communion on the first Friday of each month. This was during Holy Hour. Lord Jesus requested his love be made evident through her. In her vision, she was instructed to spend an hour every Thursday night meditating on Jesus' agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, a practice known as the Holy Hour, which later became widespread. In December 1673, Jesus appeared to Margaret Mary again and allowed her to rest her head on his heart. His human heart was said to be the symbol of his divine human love. He revealed to her the wonders of his love. He explained to her that he wished to make these wonders known to all the world, and that he chose her for his work. Margaret Mary convinced her superior, Mother de Saumaise, her visions were authentic. However, she struggled with convincing others of the validity of her apparitions, even those in her own community. A group of theologians declared her visions delusions and suggested she eat better. Even the parents of children she instructed began calling her an impostor. Eventually, she did gain the support of the community's confessor, Saint Claude de la Colombière, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, who declared her visions were genuine. Finally, all opposition from the community regarding her visions ended in 1683 when Margaret Mary became the assistant to the superior. Now, she later became the novice mistress, led the monastery observing the Feast of the Sacred Heart, privately and inspired the construction of a chapel built to honor the Sacred Heart. Margaret Mary died a couple of years later at the age of 43 on October 17, 1690, while being anointed. She spoke the words, "I need nothing but God and to lose myself in the heart of Jesus." After her death, the devotion of the Sacred Heart was adopted by the Jesuits and remained controversial within the church. The practice did not become officially recognized until 75 years later. She was the topic of discussion long after her death. They talked about her mission, her qualities, her spiritual maxims, maxims, her teachings on the Sacred Heart. On September 18th, 1864, she was beatified by Pope Pius IX, and her tomb was opened a few years later, and 2 immediate cures took place, and her body laid incorrupt. That's another thing, is they kind of want the bodies not to deteriorate. I guess that adds to the miracle factor. She was made the patron saint of those suffering from polio and loss of parents. Now, she was also a mystic, so this is going to be really interesting to communicate with her, and I'm excited to try to do this. So I'm going to call her in with my Steampunk Tarot deck, and I'm going to see if she can come through. So, Margaret Mary, Saint Margaret Mary, or Margaret Mary Alacoque, or however you pronounce her name. Oh, I got a card that I got to flip over. So I'll reshuffle these. All right, I'll reshuffle these, and I will ask, I'll lay these out here. And I always kind of like to lay them in a row. And I'm going to ask Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, are you able to come through and give a message? Kind of want to see if she just has a message or how she comes through. Oh, this is interesting. She comes through as a Page of Wands, and she comes through with her head down, almost like not fully trusting this process. Like she's kind of got one eye on me, looking like, okay, what do you want? Now you have to remember that her lifespan was a long time ago. She died in 1690. Okay, so she's like, okay, what are you talking to me for? This is kind of the card of, why are you talking to me? So I'll say, I really am calling you in to find out, do you realize that you're a saint? Do you realize that the church made you into a saint? Are you aware that you are a saint? That's my first question. Because, she wasn't alive. The Knight of Pentacles. Oh, so that was like she's knighted. Okay, so when someone's knighted, they're giving an honor. So this means yes, because there is no card of knighting, of, canonizing a Catholic saint. There's no card to recognize that. But the closest to it is being knighted, a knight. So she is aware of that. She is aware of that. Okay, and so were you able to perform miracles after your death? Were you able to perform miracles after your death? Were you responsible for that? This will be interesting. Oh, shit. Magic. That's miracles. Magician. Magic. Magic and miracles. Wow. This is not where I thought it was going to go. She channels energy. She channels energy down into the physical. The pentacle is the physical. So the magician channels higher energies. Remember the magi, or magicians, and the alchemists, they made gold out of whatever. She channels spiritual energies down and affects and influences the physical. Well, I'll be darned. So, I don't know how to ask this. I want to be very formal with her. Are you continuing your work on the other side, Margaret Mary? Are you continuing your work on the other side? The star, she is. That's a star in the sky. She's overseeing. She's overseeing where her talents are the best. She had certain talents during her life. And so she's overseeing. She's definitely overseeing where she was instructed to oversee. Okay. Well, this is fascinating. Do you think that your gifts came from, where do you think your gifts came from? Your visions, where do you think these gifts came from that you had? Because she would get visions. She was considered a mystic, and she was very controversial. Where did you get these visions from? She's funny. I had too much to drink. I'd get together and have too much to drink. I feel like this is the card that the Three of Cups, where the family that she was born into, I feel like this was a group. It wasn't just her that was a mystic. I feel like she was born into a family that had that as a quality, because this is a group. This is a group. I'm not just the only mystic. There's other mystics here. So now on the other side, were you able to get visions or communicate with Jesus on the other side? Were you able to communicate with Jesus or get visions or continue that work on the other side? This is blindfolded. So she couldn't see. So she's saying blindfolded. So she couldn't, when you're blindfolded, you can't see. So here's Earth. She's over here and she can't see what she believed in. This means that there's a blindfold here. She can't see what she believed to be true. So when you couldn't see what you believed to be true on the other side, what did that cause you to do? What did you have to do when you couldn't see on the other side what you believed to be true? Then what happened? Oh, wow. Look at all the mathematics. So she's showing that there's different laws. There's different laws of operation. This is all the mathematical equation. And she had to walk away from a system. So this person is walking away from an organized system, understanding that there's higher mathematics, there's higher things going on how things operate. And the Eight of Cups is a walking away. It's a leaving of something organized. She had to leave her organized belief and go into something a little higher level. Okay, so I'll go with that. How are you doing now over there? Like how are you doing now? What are you doing now on the other side? So she helps the suffering, the Seven of Swords. She carries the burdens for those who pray to her. For those who pray, which prayer is a swords, right? Because the swords are the spoken word. So for those who pray about their problems, she works on their problems. That's the whole, she's really, embraced the saint part of this. So she helps people with their problems. What do you think of the process of the church making people into saints? What do you think of that whole entire process? What do you think of that? The Six of Pentacles. So she said that there's the higher ups in the church look at the lives of how they live their lives, and this would be the servants, the devoted servants. Now, oftentimes in earlier times, this was children. They look at their life from childhood on. And then if it's a just life, if it's fair and just as far as, their behavior doesn't have to be fair and just, but they have to eventually end up with it there. All right. Because some of the saints I looked at, they were rebels and they did unchurchly, ungodly behaviors. But if they did devote their life finally at any point in their life, they were considered then. So it has to end up being like a fair process. It has to end up being, they have to have a justification for being a saint. There has to be a justification process there. And there we go, a page of cups. Often this is brought on even through childhood. Not just adulthood, but what their childhood was like. A lot of them were seriously sick. I want to ask her, what do you think of the mortification of harming your body? What do you think of that? That the church actually approved of that. I don't think they do anymore, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. What do you think of somebody harming their physical body for their belief in this particular religion? What do you think now that you're on the other side? Oh, you can't make this shit up. There's the lion with the paw. Oh, she's explaining to me there is a difference between stigma? What are you trying to tell me? Stigmatas? What is she trying to tell me? Stigma? I got to Google it because I don't... people who have stigmata exhibit wounds that duplicate or represent those of Jesus. Oh, so she's like, Okay. So if they are wounded because of whatever that is, stigmatic injury, she's okay with that, but she doesn't believe in wound. It's interesting. We got an animal with a wound there, isn't it? I mean, because the tarot really doesn't have a whole lot of wounded people, but that's definitely a wound. She said, she's indicating she wounded herself, but that's not an acceptable practice. If you develop a wound, then she believes that that's okay. That's okay. Now remember, this is just, she was a normal human being living a somewhat religious life. And so even though she's been deceased a long time, she may still have these beliefs from back in that time period. So you have to keep that in mind. Do you have anything else that you want to say to people? That their life is eternal. This is her message, Ace of Wands, life is eternal. That's the Ace of Wands. And to celebrate life. And I love the candles in this card. Wow. I just want to thank her for coming through and being honest. And she was somewhat of a rebel during her time because of her mystical visions and that. So I just want to thank her. And we're going to move on to one more. I picked one more. This to me sounded very interesting. And this is Saint Peter Damian, Bishop and Doctor of the Church. Now, he was from 1007 to 1072. Isn't that interesting? His color is white. His liturgical color, I'm not pronouncing that right. So anyway, he was a wise, holy monk that becomes a cardinal and thunders for reform in the church. Every Catholic knows that the Pope is elected by and from the cardinals of the church, gathered by the Sistine Chapel. Every Catholic knows that the Pope then goes to a large balcony perched high in the facade of St. Peter's Basilica to greet the faithful and receive their acceptance. This is simply how things are done in the church, but it's not the way things were always done. A Catholic in the Middle Ages would have described a papal election as something like a barroom fight, a back alley brawl, or a political race with bribes and promises made just to be broken. Everyone, far-off emperors, nobility of Rome, military generals, priests, put their hands on the wheel to turn the rudder of the church in one direction or another. Papal elections were sources of deep division, causing lasting damage to the body of Christ. Then along came St. Peter Damian to save the day. He headed a group of reform-minded cardinals and others who decided that in 1059 that only cardinals and bishops could elect the Pope. No nobles, no crowds, no emperors. St. Peter wrote that the cardinal bishops do the electing and the other clergy give their assent, and the people give their applause. This is exactly the program the church has followed for almost 1,000 years. Today's saint sought to reform himself first and then pull every weed that choked the life from healthy plants in the garden of the church. After a difficult upbringing of poverty and neglect, Peter was saved from destitution by an older brother named Damian. Out of gratitude, he added his older brother's name to his own. He was given an excellent education in which his natural gifts became apparent, and then entered a strict monastery to live as a monk. Peter's extreme mortifications, which mean he was injuring the flesh on his body, learning, wisdom, uninterrupted life of prayer, and desire to ship the right of the church, put him in contact with many other church leaders who desired the same. He was eventually called to Rome. Against his will, he was ordained a bishop and made a cardinal, head of the diocese. So, he also thundered in the strongest and clearest language against the scourge of homosexuality in the priesthood. So, evidently, he had some firm beliefs about things like that. So, what happened here? More than 200 years after our saint's death, Dante wrote his Divine Comedy. The author is guided through paradise and sees a golden ladder lit by a sunbeam stretching into the clouds above. Dante begins to climb and meets a soul radiating the pure love of God. Now, one of the things that St. Peter Damian is about is to reform your church, and it begins with your own monastery cell. You never asked of others what you did not demand first of yourself. You have endured the detraction and calumny of your peers. Help us to reform others by our example, learning and perseverance and mortifications. I'm sorry, I'm just shocked. Mortifications. There you go. That would be harming yourself. So this guy's going to be interesting to communicate. Let's get right into it and see what he thinks. This is 1,000 to 1,072, so we're going way back. All right, Saint Peter of Damian. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. That would be your brother's honor. Let's ask if you can come through and what message you have. Oh, wow. He comes through loud and clear. Definitely loud and clear with a judgment card. So I wonder what he's judging. Oh my gosh, that was his goal, is to judge or, identify things that weren't right within the church. That was his mission in life. So this is very interesting. He was personally involved with various battles for reform, and he finally requested to leave and return to his monastery, which he was repeatedly denied, until finally the Holy Father let him return to a life of prayer, where his primary distraction was carving wooden spoons. He died of a fever in 1072. Now, Pope Benedict the 16th described him as one of the most significant figures of the 11th century, a lover of solitude and a fearless man of the church. Wow. He died 100 years before St. Francis of Assisi was even born, and many refer to him as St. Francis of his age. Okay. Well, he's coming through with the judgment card, so this will be interesting to see. What is he judging now? What's he think now? Is he still a rebel? Are you still a rebel on the other side? What do you have to say to us now? So he's overseas, like the large world, like he's still overseeing change in the world. And this is the Two of Wands from a spiritual realm. He's still overseeing the world because that person is holding the world. And Five of Cups, he sees the suffering going on right now. So he's aware that there's still, that has never changed, the suffering on the planet. Wow, he brings up the same card, which is the Six of Pentacles, making things fair, having things be fair and just. I want to ask him, have you changed any of your views since you have been passed away? Have you changed any of your views? Three of Pentacles, he has. This is doing research and developing new ideas. So he's actually showing me holding the tarot cards and saying it's a new concept for him to speak to me through these cards. This is a new concept, and that he's always researching and studying this, and he still to this day is researching and studying. And then he's still in the church. He's still very much involved in the church. This is like a church kind of pillar, and he's very instrumental in influencing in the church what needs to be done. He is still influencing that, which is fascinating. I'm going to ask him, so what's your biggest message? I feel like he wants to talk to churches now, but what's your biggest message for people right now? What would you say to your average person right now? The Nine of Wands, and look at how the person, so he's acknowledging that we all have wounds, but we need to see clear of our wounds, have a futuristic vision. We need to have a futuristic vision for where our lives are going. And I feel like he wants us to have like a plan. Oh, this is interesting. There's things in the church he doesn't agree with. See the skull on the shelf? Oh. So there's some process. Are you talking about the process of how someone becomes a saint? Are you not happy with that? Because it sure looks like that with the skull on the shelf. Were you not happy? I wonder if he was not happy with his own beautification and his own, because that couldn't happen until they were passed away for a long time. That would be interesting. Let me ask him. Were you happy with the own process of how you were made a saint? The devil. No. This would be a big no. He doesn't like that entire process. Oh, that's interesting. So you would want to reform the entire process of how someone becomes a saint. Boy, he is out for reform. I keep looking at this, that he's not happy because he was, passed away when they go through the saint process. You're passed away. There's something about that process he doesn't like. What is it? What's the process that you don't like? Oh, same card. He doesn't like the wounds. He doesn't believe in wounding yourself, which he did back in his lifetime, but now he doesn't believe in any kind of wounding. He said it was trying to prove that you were strong in your religious belief. Okay, that's interesting. What else do you have to say? This guy is interesting. Look at this. Best ales, wines, and spirits. He believes that we can develop happy practices. We should develop happy practices, not this suffering that you have to suffer practice. Okay. And is there anything that you want people to know right now? Is there any other final message that you would have? Nine of Swords. There's a lot of information coming that causes people to suffer. There's a lot of beliefs. I feel like these are all beliefs that come at people and cause suffering. A lot of the beliefs, this is Nine of Swords. Nine of Swords is that most suffering happens in your mind. In other words, you cause a lot of suffering by the way you think and, things like that. And he's just saying, close off to these negative thoughts and these negative beliefs. Don't let them come in. Don't let the negative thoughts, close your ears. Put your hands over your ears and don't let that negative stuff in. That's an interesting message. You can tell this guy's energy. Oh, wow. He's being thankful that I parted the veil and was able to communicate with him. He's thankful that he was able to see through the veil and have this communication with you. And so I'm going to be thankful to him and thank you for coming through. I'm going to thank you for coming through. This has been fascinating to talk to somebody like this. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of processes that have to end that he doesn't like. He is not happy with a lot of the things going on now. If you were alive now, what is the biggest change that you would make? If you were alive right now, what is the biggest change that you would make anywhere in the world? Anywhere, the world, anywhere. Oh, wow, he's being very humble. He goes, I don't know that I could change the world. I don't know that I have that power to change the world. He's very humble. This card is very humble. Wow. So what can change the world? What do you think can change the world? Is there anything that can change the world? Well, there's no people here. The moon. So I feel like the moon's about deception. It's funny that there's a light shining on the moon, and the moon is about deception. And I feel like this could be shining a light on deception. Huh. Well, that's interesting. I want to thank you, St. Peter, Damian, for coming through. I want to thank all you guys for listening to this, and I hope this wasn't too controversial for those of you who have religious attachments to beliefs. So I think that I'll probably be researching some of these saints a little more because they do have interesting lives. I think the process of how the Catholic Church determined that someone is going to be a saint is interesting. Obviously, they require the person to be deceased for 5 years, and then the person has to do miracles that are not reversed from the other side. I wonder why the church does that. why did the Catholic Church decide that they can communicate with people once they're passed away? What why did they come up with that? The process that you can talk to deceased people once they're passed away. Okay, the leaders. Okay, the King of Cups. The leaders just put that in the system. They just put that in the system. They know that you can communicate with deceased people because I do it with the cards all the time. So they knew that and they built it into their system. So why would they want to take they're all about don't worship false gods, but yet they make these saints. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting. You should accept Jesus in your heart, but don't have false gods, right? And then they have 10,000 saints. What's the purpose of their saints? What were the Catholics hoping to by having people pray basically to everyday people who just devoted their life to God? Oh, it's a spiritual purpose. It's supposed to be a spiritual purpose, and this is no people in here. You're communicating with people who have left the earth, right? These wands are off the planet. The people can pray to these saints, pray to the saints, and it gets people. When you pray to someone who's dead, and you ask them to do something, you're an ordinary person. The Catholic Church is really giving you permission to pray to somebody who's dead that they canonized as a saint based on their life. You can now pray to them and they can change your physical life. Really, this is fascinating. I don't think any other church does this. So what is the end result of all this? Oh, yikes. I know exactly what this card is. So there's people that would pray for the saints to help them and they aren't helped. And so then they're like, why isn't the saint helping me? Why isn't God helping me? Why isn't Jesus helping me? Why did I pray? I did everything I was supposed to do. And why am I still suffering? Why am I not healed? If I can allegedly pray to a saint or pray to some entity and then I'm still not helped, that's a problem. I wonder how they address this problem. How do they address the problem that some people pray and don't get helped? Oh, it's the king that decides who gets helped and who doesn't get helped. We have a king on each side. This is control. This is about control. So they're going to control how somebody becomes a saint. They are going to control how they have probably all these rules and ways that you need to pray and all these things that you need to do. It's all instruction to control within this is the king. He's the leader of the, you do what I say. It's always been that way. You do what I come up with. That's fascinating. All right. So I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to cut down religion. Religion, if it works for you, any system that works for you, go ahead and do it. You have to live your life the way you want to live your life, attached to the beliefs that feel good to you. And, there's no judging on this channel. I don't judge anyone. I don't judge any system. I just communicate or gain insights from the cards. And even that doesn't always end up being perfect because there's no perfect people. So I do want to thank you for being on my channel. This has been a little bit of an eye-opener for me. And anytime that you can learn something new and not be in a place of judgment, we do have an amazing planet with some amazing people and amazing beliefs. So I'll tell you what, you want to go down a rabbit hole, start researching some of the lesser-known saints and reach out to them. Say a prayer. Do they come in to help you? Does something change in your life? I'd like to hear if it has. Please leave a comment on my wall, and I'll see you on the next video.